digital financial ecosystem today operates at a scale IC have enabled millions of citizens. Volumes run into billions on a monthly basis. Onboarding happens in seconds, not days. While this scale is a source of enormous strength, at the same time, we must ensure that stronger controls do not come at the cost of exclusion or friction, especially for first-time users and MSMEs. This is where AI must be reframed not as a tool but as an infrastructure. While we speak of AI in BFSI, the real shift is from after the fact detection to in flight intelligence. AI enables continuous risk assessment across onboarding, transactions, and networks. It allows institutions to detect subtle behavioral anomalies, identify mule networks, and surface systemic risk that no human or static rule engine can identify in real time. If designed correctly, AI can reduce false positives, lower friction, and improve customer experience. This is also where Indo-Singapore partnership becomes very powerful. While India brings to the table population-scale digital rails, diverse real-world datasets, and deep technology talent pool, Singapore brings regulatory oversight, very strong governance frameworks, and proven capability in operationalizing advanced technology responsibly. In particular,
to show up here. And I know it's not the most comfortable standing like this. Sorry, can't do much about it, but we'll hopefully try to make the conversation interesting. Second, I do want to, Sarika, introduce one more thing. I couldn't be more pleased to have such high quality organizations, whether it is Temasek, DBS, Protean, with all of them actually, and have the highest regard. So I'm deeply pleased. I think Suresh spoke very eloquently about this partnership between India and Singapore, and I think the one other thing which I also want to further emphasize is there's a lot which both sides bring to the table. represented here as well. I personally worked in the early years of when Aadhaar got rolled out and the foundation of the digital public infrastructure in India was created. And the amount of progress we made in the last decade has been remarkable. At the next decade from here on, there are many opportunities, but there are also many questions. And that's the kind of thing we'll debate. Can we take it to the next level? Can trust be the foundation in this context is very, very critical. So I think that's what we're going to talk about. So the basic digital onboarding has happened. Almost all of us have seen that happen, whether it is on payments, credit, all of that. But trust is a place where AI can play a very important role in establishing the infrastructure by giving it real-time risk intelligence, fraud prevention. It could also create more of those. So I think and there's a whole host of questions about, can it go from pilots to scaling? Can it be truly explainable? Can it create privacy, auditability, all of those? So those are the lenses we'll examine. And I'm going to go around and ask questions to each of the participants. So I'm going to start first with Suresh, with you itself. So while you get your water. So as you said, our digital financial rails are now at population scale, right? Everywhere I travel, people are hugely impressed by what India has accomplished on those. So with rising velocity, but also increasingly sophisticated fraud, right? And the legacy-based rules are no longer going to be sufficient in this context. Do you think AI can provide a core trust infrastructure as part of this? Will be good to hear your views. Hello? You had to press this button, little button here.
Okay. Slide it to the right.
Slide it to the right. Perfect.
Yes. Am I audible? No, thanks, Neeraj. Thanks for the question. No, as I said earlier, I think first of all, it's the scale that we are talking about today. As we are all aware, and we very proudly know, we track it month on month. UPI last did 20 billion plus transactions in a month, right? And interestingly has also doubled in the last 2 to 3 years. And we are actually talking about projected losses exceeding 1 lakh crores if things are not caught. So rule-based mechanisms, while they are important to set a threshold, but they are 0-1 signals which work at a transactional level. So you can either block transactions above a certain value, you can block your daily limits, which we all do on our applications. They are just not good enough to work at scale in the way the transaction velocity is going. So I think 3 key things which come through it. One is the speed and reactiveness. Now clearly when we are talking about transaction happening at this scale, it's very difficult because fraud happens in milliseconds. And you would always be caught post facto in trying to prevent it. One simple example, if you're having a few cars on the road, it's very easy to have fixed traffic signals, right? And the red light and green light just signify move or don't move. But when you're talking about millions of cars on the road, which are creating congestion, accidents, you need a very smart adaptive system which can dynamically change the rules of the game and change the signals and the traffic control and the directioning. And I think interestingly, today's experience in entering this place would have been far superior if AI would have dynamically managed which queue to take and to come in over here. So I think speed and reactiveness is one. The second part clearly is networked intelligence is very critical. Because today when we are talking about, all of us from the financial services industry, we are very familiar with the term called mule accounts. Now what is that? Effectively, the money is moved from the victim's account into one or more accounts in milliseconds and then just branches out into multiple accounts, including cross-border accounts. So one single institution which is managing it will see maybe a genuinely created account into which the money is moving. But unfortunately, while it could be coerced or fraudulent, you're not rules are today giving you just limits. It's 0-1. So you have challenges around false detection and false positives. And you're excluding people by just saying if a transaction is above a certain value, stop it. And in this case, they are real life transactions and people's livelihood depends on it. So AI really plays a role over this. We spoke about it. Whether it is networked intelligence, which means you are now looking at behaviors across multiple accounts, across multiple institutions, and you are seeing anomalies in those behavior, and you are able to catch it at source. And clearly, the third one being very
Of course, what you said, data is not available, it's all over the place, there is no single source of truth. Every plant, every manufacturer, every branch has its own data source. So bringing it all together and making sense out of it, of course, is tedious and is required for any AI systems to work at scale. And pilots are designed to be successful. Everybody wants the POCs and pilots to be successful, and hence they are successful. Nobody wants scale up, and hence it has to come from top down, and we have to start from making the data readiness. But a couple of other things also come in the way. I think scale up is less of a tech problem and more of a mindset shift. We often have very low tolerance for AI systems when they start making decisions. When humans make decisions, it's fine for them to make errors. But when an AI makes a decision, we of course, as human beings, we start judging the AI and often call it, this is not working. This is not something that can work at scale. We can't rely on this. I think we need to move on from using AI as a rule-based system, like Suresh was saying, into a paradigm where AI is learning on a daily basis from the data and from the patterns, and also realize that it is going to get better. Today, what it is doing is, if even if it is as good as human, not better. Of course, it is much better in many areas, but it is creating capacity before it is creating new capabilities. So what you were able to do in 2 hours, we can now do the same thing at the least in 2 minutes. And imagine approving a loan with all the fraud checks done in place, from an application to cash happening in 2 minutes straight through, is something that India needs at scale. And I think AI is going to play a big role in making that happen. So thinking of AI as first catalyzing capacity and then adding new capabilities, I think is one way to get to scale quickly. And as the capabilities increase, I think we will see much more use cases come to life in real life.
That's some excellent points about catalyzing capacity first and mindset. Yeah. Thanks, Bhuvan. Manish, I'm going to come to you. So Manish, 811, for those who don't know, is like a bank within a bank and has been remarkably successful. And you do a lot of stuff, onboarding decisions, multiple kinds of transaction decisions, etc., etc. I'm sure when you meet your friendly regulator, they ask you, Can you do explainability, accountability, and all those questions, right? I mean, and rightfully so. The regulators have to ask that question. If I was in the shoes, I would ask the same question. Do you think this tool is helping you with that? And not just regulators. Why just regulators? Even customers can ask this question. Auditors can ask that question. So it's everybody can ask that question. And please shed some light on this.
Yeah. So everybody knows, we are one of the largest acquiring engine in India. And two of the problem which does not let me sleep is AI and fraud. And when this session was happening, that AI and fraud is happening, I said I better attend this. Primarily, if AI has to be used in financial, which is a highly regulated one, it has to be explainable, and governance mindset has to be very much into the people who are building it up. One acronym which I have found it and which works is JCT. It has to be justifiable. Any decision which has been taken, whether the credit has been denied, a transaction has been stopped, how do we justify that? That is J. C is contestability, where anybody who has been affected by the decision, he should have the wherewithal to go back and contest, ask for what was the reason per se. And third is the traceability. The decision which happened, which AI made it across, can you go back and see what were the reason, what were the biases which made that decision to happen? Now in this, there are three stakeholders, as you rightly said. One is customer, for whom transparency and recourse are very critical. The second is auditors, for whom traceability and evidence, they would look at model, lineage, and versioning. They would look at any biases which exist into it. And the third and the most important stakeholder is the regulator, who's looking for evidences and accountability. They are looking for human in the loop. AI can continue to make decisions, but is there a human who's looking at the decision being done? A classical example is video KYC was launched in India in May 2020. We were the first one to go live, but regulator was very clear that while the systems will do all of those checks, face match, all algo run, there has to be somebody sitting behind who will go through the process to ensure that person who's getting onboarded is a real person. So I think if we follow this JCT, justifiable, contestable, and traceable, and take care of all three stakeholders, which is customer, auditor, and regulator, we probably would be in good shape. Neeraj.
Excellent. I love that framework, JCT. So I'm going to ask you a follow-up question, Manish, on that.
Yeah.
So using JCT,
Yeah.
do you think you can help customers reduce friction for customers, right? But, and also, the other error can be unintended exclusion, right? Whether it is retail, whether it is MSME, do you think that is possible to accomplish both lower friction and not unintended exclusion?
Yeah. So if we start from onboarding, right, there could be tiered onboarding can happen. A low friction product where the risks are lower can get started very quickly. And as the progression happens, there could be friction, like video KYC, there has to be a people. If it is little higher kind of stuff, there could be a physical PD, which happens in terms of onboarding. Now, as Suresh also mentioning, gone are the days when rule-based things can protect us. It has to be real-time decisioning, which has the context to it. Just to give you an example, one of the fintech in UK has launched something called as street mode. What it does is, in an app, I can tell these are my safe places, my home, my office. But there are many times where mobile get picked up when you are walking on the street. Now, if somebody picks up your mobile and the payment being instant, money can move very quickly. So what has been done, if it is not my safe place, if money has to move, I need to do face authentication. Even if I put in an order saying that move 1 lakh from this account to other, it does not happen real time. It has a lag of whatsoever time you put in. And after that time, again, the face authentication happen. Now, if somebody has to take my money, he probably better kidnap me for an hour for the money to move using my app. So Neeraj, I think definitely AI is helping. We need to have guardrails, have to ensure that we use it in the right context. But I firmly believe AI has a huge future, and it is helping financial institution as well.
I love this street mode. Yeah, I mean, that's a great, I had not heard of this. I love it. Saurabh, I'm going to come to you to build off this, if that's okay. Um, Firstly, would you resonate with the points Manish made? And then, is there any? Let's start with that, and I have a question on regulation to follow up. And Srijay, I'm coming to you right after. Don't feel like unwanted.
I think I fully agree with what Manish has said. Just a couple of things. One um, is that every fast car needs a brake for us to be having a sense of safety. Similarly, any AI development will require guardrails to be in place so that we know we are going in the right direction. And that is something that we followed, at least in our organization. We may use different acronyms. So we call it PURE. So the questions we ask ourselves is, can we do it? Whether regulations allow us. The second is, should we do it? Whether it meets the PURE framework, which is purposeful, unsurprising to the customer, respectful, explainable. Something similar to JCT. I think the only thing I'll add to that is respectful. Because one of the things which data seems to have is a biases. So if I'm using historical data and it creates a bias which excludes a section of the society, I think that is something that we need to take care while making sure that we are building the right AI models. And the last one which we have is, how do we do it? Is make sure that once the models are there, we have the right kind of governance on it. I think these are the things, if it were to take care, I don't see any reason why AI should not go even faster in our life.
And just, you see regulation as an enabler, or regulators are willing to play ball?
Regulations are critical, and regulators are having the right kind of framework for getting the banks. So Singapore, we have the FEAT framework. In India, RBI has come out with a concept paper around it, and we have gone through it. It sort of aligns with what we have in a place, and it's critical.
Okay, Srijay, as I said,
Sorry, just one point I'd like to add is, I think the important part which regulators are facilitating is sharing of data between the organizations. And I think that will be the most crucial fact, because as a bank, I can look at my own data. But if I'm getting a larger information of frauds, what's happening, those kind of information will really help us make better decisions.
Got it. Thanks, Saurabh. Srijay, I'm going to ask you from a long-term capital as well as ecosystem perspective. Do you see a convergence, or where do you see the strongest conversion between this AI-driven infrastructure or trust infrastructure and financial markets, maybe financial inclusion, both in this part of the world as well as on cross-border financial corridors?
Thanks, Neeraj. If you think about from a long-term capital standpoint, it's very easy to say that, look, the convergence will happen in functional areas, and it's very important, and I'll talk a little bit about that.
Sorry, before that, Srijay works for Temasek, and Temasek is one of the larger deployers of capital in this part of the world for sure, if not all parts of the world.
So I think, there are functional areas where it's really important, but also there is a larger strategic imperative that we shouldn't forget. So let me touch on the functional areas first. So if you think about the functional areas, one is the role of AI in capital allocation. Now, capital allocation is the basic building block of inclusion, the right capital allocation, because if you misallocate, that's a systemic risk. And that is really what we want to avoid as capital allocators. And if you want to avoid that, you really need to embed that trusted infrastructure in the financial plumbing. All the things that all of you said, right? Data integrity, provenance, model drifts, how do you fix model biases? All those governance has to be embedded in the financial plumbing. I say this because, if I try to simplify it, it's really saying that if you have trusted data, you have trusted models. If you have trusted models, you have trusted capital allocation. If you have trusted capital allocation, then you have trusted inclusion. And that's really the flywheel that hopefully we can iron out as we progress in the future. Now, the second functional area is, what is the role of AI in the context of doing audits, what I call the audit layer, which is validation of disclosures. As capital allocators, we are always relying on disclosures and the traceability of them, particularly in the context of climate and ESG, where you're looking at multimodal data to validate whether something is accurate or not. Again, the role of AI in the context of audit is very important. So I would say capital allocation and auditability and traceability are functional areas where long-term capital is particularly interested from a convergence standpoint. But now I want to come back to the strategic imperative, and this is very important because we don't think convergence sits in applications, in fintech apps. Convergence sits in the infrastructure, and that is extremely important because that's where the network effects are created. The second thing where I think the strongest convergence comes is actually outside of banking. It actually happens in the supply chains. And if you're able to embed finance in the supply chains, think about agriculture, renewables, the labor markets, that is where the impact is highest. And for us to get there, that is where the trusted AI infrastructure has to converge all the points that you mentioned, which is identity, productivity, credit, and in the context of cross-border interoperability. I'll just end that note with a line that I wrote when I was reflecting on this topic yesterday, which is when financing is embedded in production networks, inclusion is a byproduct of economic growth. And that is exactly what we are talking about. That's where you can be a lot more inclusive and also drive growth and productivity as you think about capital and capital allocation.
Excellent. So I'm going to go to another round of questions, but I think there's been a lot of alignment of the thoughts that the possibilities of the AI are enormous. Yes, there are things to work around. So just to give you a heads up, I'm going to ask at the end all of you one thing you feel excited about with AI and one thing you feel skeptical about with AI. Okay, so but just a heads up, but nevertheless, let me carry on. Suresh, I'm going to come back to you on this India-Singapore AI hub that you and I actually engaged a lot on. What do you think are possibilities which can happen on data, on compute, on talent, or other places where there could be, or information sharing, or intelligence, or just share some of those perspectives, please.
So Neeraj, I'll carry it forward from what Srijay just mentioned. Building AI as a trust infrastructure. I think we spoke about it earlier that today, when fraud is happening, our defenses are fragmented, but fraud is connected. We took the example of the mule accounts. So you are really talking cross-border intelligence to be built into the AI infrastructure. And one simple starting point is we are talking about multiple institutions which are spread across different countries. When you're looking at an AI Singapore hub, when we were looking at the entire idea, it was saying how can the two countries come together and build a shared infrastructure which is powered by AI to be able to create this cross-border impact from an intelligence perspective and very, very closely linked to the theme we are talking about over here. And underlying it, what would be critical? And when we talk about shared infrastructure in India, we've had reasonable success in what we today call as programmable registries. We are building large data registries, and that starts from whether we talk about agriculture as an ecosystem or we talk about education as an ecosystem, whether they are institutional or whether they are at an individual level. Very simply, one example I can take over here is that between the two nations, if we can build a mule account registry, any fraudsters, you are able to look at it and you are able to identify in a cross-border ecosystem. You're talking about intelligent onboarding, where each country is respecting and having a common framework for identifying the right people who are operating within the ecosystem and are being able to connect to each other. And last but not the least, this co-sharing of data can also mean that we can have a lot of predictability in the risk analytics because everything starts with data. Two countries sharing data. But coming to that, I would again say, more learning also from our banker friends on the panel. The data which is being shared has to be anonymized. So that risk should be clearly mitigated to say this is not customer data we are sharing. But these are anonymized signals, behavioral patterns which come together, and doing anything at a cross-border level will strengthen the digital, sort of cross-border rails. It will help us to break any supply chains of risk and fraud that we see out there. And it will help us to do preemptive onboarding of the right institutions and the right individuals into the ecosystem for exchange. And I think the biggest beneficiaries could be the MSMEs and the citizens between the two countries as you create more increased cross-border engagement between the two places.
Well articulated, Suresh. Bhuvan, maybe I'll come to you back to my theme of pilots to scale. Is there a possibility of using this corridor also as an enabler for moving from pilots to production models?
Absolutely, and let me build upon what Suresh was talking about. We've been discussing setting up AI Hub as a platform. Data sharing with, of course, anonymity is going to be crucial for us to prevent large-scale frauds and become organized when it comes to detecting and avoiding fraud. But just from the perspective of sharing best practices of what works, what does not work in one country versus another, sharing talent is another area that we're going to look at as we set up the AI hub across the two countries. And then as we move on to sharing learnings, sharing data, and then sharing, perhaps building platforms that can enable us to run some of these high profile algorithms and AI systems at scale with data that's trusted as well as verified across multiple entities with cross-border signals as well. So I think that's going to be a key stepping stone towards setting up the AI hub. The other thing coming from pilot to scale is again this very engineering mindset of using the latest technology, especially in all the banks and financial services industries. All of us have become tech companies, and we want to chase the latest technologies. I think we are at a point where technology evolution, especially in the AI space, is way ahead than the adoption. We have to use the current technology really well, put the right guardrails in place before we go after the next model, the next release of what is happening in Silicon Valley and so on. I think we need to use the current technologies really well and make sure that we are able to scale up what works before we go to the next one.
No, well said. And I see this desire to chase every shiny object being quite out there. Shijay, this is the last formal question, and then I have this common question to all of you, in case time permits, and I'll look at Sarika to the time. But you are the big mover of capital, as I said earlier. What signals do you look for when you back AI-led financial infrastructure at scale? Is it? I wouldn't give whatever. What signaling helps you?
Yeah, I
back?
think this is the truth for any investor is they're looking for returns, and the expected returns is a function of the risk that you're taking. So when you think about the convergence, when you think about the trusted infrastructure, does it bring the risk of capital down? Because if it brings the risk of capital down, then you will deploy a lot more capital, not just from an equity standpoint, but also from a credit standpoint. And that is extremely important because inclusion is all about being able to allocate capital and all the things that you said, right? How do you reduce friction costs? How do you reduce doing business cross-border? That's something that we are trying to do through the hub. All this come into play in bringing that cost of doing business down, which brings the cost of risk down, which helps to deploy more capital with a much better expected return profile. So nothing less, nothing more. Neeraj.
Well said, Sujay. And maybe then, sorry, I'm looking at the clock. There are 4 minutes to 4:25, so I'm going to go through. Oh, this is saying more time than what you're saying. So I'm following the 4:25 rule. If you feel we can go till 4:30, whatever. But this is the last question, really speaking. Yeah. Okay, fine. So, Srijay, maybe you first. One thing you feel very excited about, and maybe one thing you feel skeptical or still unclear about.
I think I'm extremely excited about how this is a potential for us to move up the value chain of anything that we do, and if you think about where I spend my time, I can move 20-30% up the value chain because I get more productive, and that applies to anybody and everybody on whatever they're doing. So moving up the value chain as humanity, I think, is the biggest opportunity. I think What I'm worried about is dilution of human accountability, because there will be a lot of decisions that are taken by agents, machines, but human accountability has to stay. That human in the loop on how certain decisions are taken. So I hope we don't dilute accountability while we think about the opportunities on the productivity and moving up the value chain side.
Well said. Saurabh?
I think the way I look at it is, I'm excited about the fact that we are still just started the journey on AI. We may talk about we have been in it for 8 years or 10 years, but the fact is we are still touched the tip of the iceberg. So what lies ahead of us is really exciting time. Within DBS, what we see is that nearly 2/3 of our employees actively use AI in their day-to-day work. So, and that is something we have seen benefit everybody in their productivity, individual productivity. I think the second piece I think it is a slow sort of headline from our CEO is, we want to be an AI-enabled bank with a heart. So the point is, somewhere as the AI become more pervasive, the empathy should not go away. And that is something that worries us, and that's why we say we want to be an AI-enabled bank with a heart.
I love that. Suresh?
Yeah, Neeraj, so keeping it sort of short, I would say to me the positive is inclusion and the negative is exclusion, right? Because when we talk about inclusion, and we use this example a lot, our ability to communicate with the last person who's not digitally savvy, because we spent many years talking about digital literacy and you were teaching people to sort of talk to machines, and now the machines can talk to you, and that's made a big difference. I look at my last two roles, whether we were doing M-Pesa. I remember hearing the stories that the Kenyan population was numerate but not literate. So they virtually built the entire ecosystem on saying people know how to do numbers, but they can't do instructions. And when we built India Post Payments Bank, our biggest challenge was digital literacy. We spent 10 million man hours of training the postmen because we had 300,000 postal workers getting enabled to service the ecosystem. And in today's world, it becomes a very, very easy thing to do with AI embedded over there. And even for a citizen who has a simple mobile phone, your ability to converse and be able to do what you want to do is much easier. Exclusion becomes the challenge because, yes, as some people adopt, there are the others who will get left behind. And I think India till now has adopted a very fine model of both assisted and self-serving, individuals. So I think assisted digital models in our country will remain very strong and need to be kept very strong, so that if you can't do it yourself, somebody can help you do it.
Thanks, Suresh. I love this inclusion and exclusion. Bhuvan?
I think I'm really excited about the fact that with agents coming in, humans will get to exercise much more agency, ironically. Because the drudgery of the job goes away. And I can see a future where every human, every person, whether you're in your personal productivity capacity or as an enterprise worker, you become 10x of who you are. Because you're using AI, or AI is working for you. I think that's really exciting. What's worrying me actually about AI and how it's going in the last 4 or 5 years is I'm worried our education system is yet to catch up. And are we preparing the AI natives to be truly different from how we were brought up?
Excellent. Manish, and then I'll probably bring it to a wrap after that, yeah.
So most of it has been said. If I have to put it across what I'm super excited, I am a businessman. I'm a business guy. The speed which AI brings, the thing which I would launch in 3 months probably can be launched in 15 days. So that is what is really exciting about AI. The thing which bothers me is, do I have a job tomorrow?
Actually, surprisingly, nobody else talked about that, so it's just interesting. I was waiting for it to come, but it didn't. Yeah. Okay, so look, we are pretty much at the fag end of the panel. I first and foremost wanted to thank the panelists. Genuinely, I read a lot about AI. I'm quite well versed, but I learned from each of their perspectives a lot. And I hope you also took away something from each of these speakers. They had thought a lot about it, and they brought the wealth of their wisdom from their respective organizations to bear as well. So hopefully you saw cumulative wisdom of some very iconic organizations come into play. I was thinking, what will I add to this? Maybe there's one theme I will add. At my organization, BCG, we often use this phrase 10, 20, 70. And I think it fits in with what people are saying. 10 is often the technology, and 20 is the algorithms, but the 70 is the people. So any big change needs the 10 and the 20 to be complemented to the 70. And often, in many large change agendas, we talk a lot about 10 and 20, and we talk a lot less about 70. And I think you touched upon it in different ways, but if I could leave that, the enormity of that is huge. And we need to, whatever you are doing in your respective places, keep thinking about that. Whether it is inclusion or exclusion, whether it's agency increasing or decreasing, all of those things, whether it's learning, unlearning, all of those things, that 70 is a very, very critical part of the equation. But I also want to bring it to a wrap by thanking all of you. You've been incredibly patient. Very engaged, from what I can tell from your body language. It's hard when you're standing or sitting uncomfortably. So a huge shout out to you as well. And with that, thank you. I don't know if, Sarika, I don't know the panel design. The questions are offline.
So I was about to stem on
okay.
that. Since we have Katsi, the organizers, 10 minutes, we can give 5 minutes for the Q&A if the panel is fine with that, yeah?
Couple of people said they had to leave sharp at 4:30 for flight. So I want to be respectful of that. If they can stay 5 more minutes, guys, everybody. If you have 5, okay.
5.
Will you moderate? I mean, there are lots of hands.
I would try to.
The trick in this is be short, snappy with the question. And what I will do is, maybe let me do this. Let me take a few questions so that we don't overload one. So, okay, since he's put his hand up first, can somebody pass a mic to him? If somebody can help me with that. Okay. We will take you, the lady there, as well as the gentleman here. We'll take 3 questions and then we'll see what we do.
Yeah, that's it.
Just say it out, yeah.
As we already know, we are moving to the autonomous systems. So, I'm building a system, everything would be automated. If the company want to do something, so it need to have a lot of step of paying. So it will be completely autonomous. It will pay 10 to 20 transactions without requiring human in loop. So would you allow this kind of system?
Okay, good. Let's load a couple of questions and then maybe different people will. Will you? Yeah, can I?
One from police. क्या UPI का जो IP use होता है वो whitelisting is possible so that
क्या possible है से?
Whitelisting IP से UPI जो होता है AI इसमें कुछ help कर सकता है?
Okay.
Whitelisting IPs. VPN IP ignore करें UPI के लिए या कोई बाहर की country का IP या इस type से कुछ we can.
Okay.
So that general public can.
Okay. So sorry, once again, I was just going to ask her to raise your question. Go ahead.
So hi everyone. I'm Muskan and I'm a financial analyst working with the Capgemini since 3 years. So as in Capgemini, I'm
Give the
working as
question
an
fast.
analyst.
We're short on time. Yeah, please.
So as in corporate employee, we know that we are all around with the AI and progressively growing. But if we are talking about the other than the employees, they are still questioning the AI. So what key points we have to check and we have to follow for the same to grow up the AI in India as in other countries as well.
Just pass the mic to this gentleman and then I'll ask different panelists if you want to take one of the questions and I'll go around so that we can just cover
Ankur, this said my question to Bhuvan that basically you did mention that we are less forgiving of AI and then more forgiving to human being, and every CEO has a tendency that shall I follow this shiny object or shall I wait and watch? This is more like a deja vu moment when UPI Aadhaar ecosystem was building up. I was very fortunate to deliver the first loan on Aadhaar, India Stacks, traveled all the slum areas. Now, you did mention that we move from pilot to scale. What are the best practices work for you, which every CEO, every CXO can learn from this room that from pilot, which pilot to take and which pilot to let go, right?
All right. So let's go the autonomous agents question. Saurabh, if you could take over, is that okay? The question of you're saying agents without any human in the loop. Do you envisage that?
We are moving to a system everything what we do to make things faster.
I get it. So
if I want to do something,
don't add more questions right now. I'm worried about more. Let him answer. But if you want to answer, then that's.
So as of as we stand today, I'm not going to answer about the future, is the fact that we still do not have enough comfort to let AI run it fully within banking world. We have human in the loop helping us in any transaction or anything that gets processed. We do not have that confidence right now, but as the time passes by, it can happen, but as of now, I don't have that view.
Oh, no. Sorry, that's what I want to avoid. Are you able to take the whitelisting question on the UPI evolution or given?
IP से मेरा last month करोड़ों मतलब नफा गया सिमबॉक्स चाइना से हुआ IP सिमबॉक्स से करके
Yeah, but there are challenges of whitelisting. How many IP would I? So would I block the real customers moving the money is a challenge. I understand that there is a fraud and there are ways to control frauds. So what you are articulating probably might not be the only solution to control fraud. Are you getting me? So whitelisting of IPs, individual IPs, because IPs are getting created, which are genuine as well as fraudulent. Very difficult to whitelist IP from a UPI perspective, but there are ways and means to control fraud which are happening on UPI, and we are working with NPCI to control those kind of frauds.
Okay, maybe not a full answer, but hopefully. And Bhuvan, on the scaling one?
The only best practice do less scale.
You did three projects in AI versus 5. Put it very sharply in. So less is more. I think you had a broader question on adoption, etc. So I don't know if anybody wants to take the lady's question. But I thought I touched upon that a little bit in the 10, 20, 70. Sarika, there are